Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Open Network User Group podcast. I'm Mark Tierney. I'm ONUG CTO. And today we're going to continue the ONUG C-Level series, driving the hyperautomation narrative through collaboration. But before we get going and before we connect with our important guests, listen up. ONUG Fall 2022. It's going to be fantastic. It will be a hybrid event, but we are going to be in New York City, Center 415 on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, October 19th and 20th. It's going to be a great event. The spring conference was great. This event is going to be great. So come join the ONUG community of global 2,000 companies, enterprise architects, cloud providers, thought leaders, as we demonstrate the tenets of multi-cloud. Listen, we're going to have some things that we did at spring that we're also going to do at the fall conference, live demonstrations in the orchestration and automation area, as well as in the network cloud pavilion. So those are things you really want to check out. We'll be talking about some of that stuff, quite frankly, today with our guests. And check it out. Go to onug.net to register for the event. Do it today. Why not? Why wouldn't you do it? And you can use a promo code. I'll give you a promo code, Mark's Podcast, and you'll get a 30% discount for doing it. So come join us at ONUG Fall 2022. All right. Joining me today for the podcast. I'm really looking forward to this because I haven't met Vess before. But I can tell you that Pliant is a real leader in the orchestration automation space. So we really appreciate their contributions to the discussion. And the discussions are always about how we enable the enterprise, right? That's what we do. And Pliant is a big part of that discussion. So joining me today is Vess Bakalov. He's the CEO of Pliant. Vess, welcome to the ONUG podcast. How you doing, sir?
Thank you, Mark. I'm very much looking forward to this.
Yeah, I mentioned to you in as we were prepping, Dave, I won't go into last names, but Dave from Pliant, he's on the ONUG working group, orchestration automation. Such a powerful voice. It's really, I don't know, one of the most powerful things about ONUG and working together in these collaborative environments is, the voice that suppliers bring to the conversation, and Dave and Pliant in general, part of that conversation. We really appreciate your involvement. It's great. So thanks a bunch for that.
It's a lot of fun. And I know that you haven't seen me in person there, but I've been involved behind the scenes quite a bit with what Dave has shown. And certainly he's done a great job representing our vision. So I very much believe in the mission of ONUG. It's very important to have these collaborative spaces, right, where we all meet. It's all on a level field. You can be a smaller company like Pliant. You can be a huge company. And we sort of get to explore technology. We get to explore the problems, and companies have pretty cool solutions. I mean, that solution, those demos, I always look forward to watching those. They're always really, really valuable, and you're solving real problems.
And it's really impressive to see these companies. They're very deferential to one another. We are able to maintain a lot of vendor agnostic kind of positions as we just are trying to push forward concepts. And we're going to talk about one of those concepts today, the hyperautomation concept. But before we do, Vess, give the audience a little background. Tell us about Vess, where you've been, and how you got here.
Sure. So I am an old school network guy, I guess now. I used to be a young network guy. Now I'm an old network guy. But my career started with a small CLEC where we did DSL back in 1999. We were one of the first Mid-Atlantic CLECs to do it. And then I transitioned and became a network architect for First USA / Bank One / JP Morgan Chase, as those acquired each other. And then in 2005, I left the corporate world with the mission to build a scalable and fast network performance management system. And that's where SEV1 came to be. So I was very frustrated with some of the existing solutions at the time. I didn't feel they're fast enough for what I was doing at JP Morgan. So ultimately built that. That was an amazing journey. 12 years later, I left. And a year and a half after that, started Pliant. And the idea was, look, we have observability. Observability is great. We've solved a lot of those problems. They're never solved forever. And there are some amazing companies at ONUG today doing some really interesting things in that space. But I really felt that the next step is to go ahead and create, shall we say, the 1,000 fingers for the 1,000 eyes. So how can we go out there and start actuating change in a controlled enterprise way, with governance, with speed, with agility, and really bring that dream of, the hyperautomation. How do we connect the data to what needs to happen?
Yeah, well, all right. So thanks for the background, and it's actually the perfect segue to get into the hyperautomation discussion. So, listen, I maintain all the time that you get Gartner or someone like Gartner dropping a relatively new terminology, or at the very least getting some energy behind a particular type of terminology. There's always a little bit of a scramble from certainly suppliers, right? Because no one wants to be left out and feel like they're not satisfying a new need or a feature or functionality that their competitors are dealing with. But also, long time ops person on the consumer side, Bess, I always feel that we've had the same pressure on the consumer side too. The executive teams want to know, what are we doing with this tech? Are we, what are we going to get out of this tech? And being properly prepared and informed to answer those kinds of questions, because you don't want to go chase the latest shining object if it's not going to deliver value to your business. And that's a big part of what we do at ONUG is try to understand the narrative, and in certain cases jump in the middle of the narrative and help drive it. Right.
Exactly.
That's a big part of what we do. So people don't get lost in the hype. So why don't we start there? Maybe you've got some just general opinions about hyperautomation that you feel like is important for our audience to hear.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think hyperautomation is one of those things that pretty uniquely fits in the ONUG purview, because it's all about interconnecting systems together, right? And you're right, just like you said, it's the latest shining object is only as valuable as the decisions and the value it helps us drive into our organizations. So whether you're a supplier like us and you're trying to create a product that fits the market and obviously fits the marketing as well, or you're a consumer who needs to bring the newest technology in order to stay competitive within the core business of their organization, it's important to understand each of those terms is very hyperloaded. Even if you look at the Gartner definition of hyperautomation, it goes from AI through packaged software with some business process management in the middle, right? So it's a big, broad field. So we have to frame it, we have to contextualize it, and like those demos you guys put together around specific use cases, that really helps with these kind of contextualizations. But to give you sort of the broader vision at Pliant, we have around the hyperautomation market and why we need this new market to be defined, to come into existence, really comes from what we have just gone through, this roller coaster of the past 3 years. You can't, I'm going to sound banal, but COVID changed everything, right? So the way, yeah, it's the obvious.
It absolutely did.
Yeah, Captain Obvious reporting here. But in many ways, it accelerated a lot of transitions that were underway. In many ways, it forced businesses to sort of face realities that may have otherwise taken a decade. It accelerated the adoption of the cloud in multiple ways. If you think about it, there is two types of cloud for an enterprise. There is the cloud I own, which is sort of my data center transitioning to a cloud provider, or even running my old data center as a cloud, to my internal customers. And then there is the cloud of all the apps I'm consuming from the cloud as SaaS. Is it Slack? Is it Jira? Is it any number of, is it Pliant, right? Or any one of those other companies. So that cloud no longer being a part of our IT infrastructure as such, but being part of the IT services we're responsible to deliver with high availability, around which our businesses are built now and very much rely on, that cloud transition has just accelerated to light speed, right? And we have to adapt to this new IT and how it's being consumed.
So you bring up change, and there are all kinds of forces and force equalizers that are driving particular change. Obviously, COVID was a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
I continue to be impressed at how the industry responded. Almost to the point where some business executives were like embarrassed that they were doing well because of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
in other words, that propelled their business. And I always, not your problem. Like, you were there and you solved the problem. That's awesome. A problem that certainly needed to be solved. But though many of those problems, certainly the focus and goals, I feel like many of them were achieved. It's interesting now as we're organizations are looking to now make different kinds of adjustments. Do we come back to work
Mhm.
at the office or not? Regardless of what those choices are, what are you seeing? And from your vantage point, where are you seeing focus in this hyperautomation space?
Yeah.
What are organizations prioritizing? Because you made the point in the Gartner paper,
Yeah.
you made the point that there are several domains that they try to address. And when I look at it, it's a little daunting, quite frankly. Um, so I think organizations tend to compartmentalize those things and say, let's go after this. Are you seeing that from your vantage point that organizations are saying, let's focus on this particular space from a hyperautomation perspective?
I'm sure that that's certainly the case. I mean, we all have budgets. We all have to prioritize spend in specific ways. And just the way the paper is written, the Gartner paper, right? You have a lot of business units who will be touched by it. And I think different business units will prioritize differently. Like, right, we have RPA in here. And RPA, in the end of the day, it's the business guys who are going to have the most bang for the buck for that particular technology. And then you have something like iPaaS, which is more like where we are. And that's going to be a little bit more in the IT field. So we certainly see the drive to interconnect systems to allow for faster and easier communication as being one of the fastest growing segments of the market. Now, if you think about it, communicating with the rest of the organization in order to solve problems as they cross domains is something very important. And I was thinking this morning, actually, I was talking with one of our other executives, how work has changed. And the humble knock guy, they used to sit in a room, and I've been there myself, and you have a big screen with all the red alerts, and you communicate with each other because the new alert comes up, and you're like, hey, Joe, you want to take that one? Yep, I'll take that one. Good. Well, there is no big board. So what do? Right? We still have Spectrum and everything else maybe running in the background. Sure, it's fine. But then I actually want to get a Slack message when that alert pops up, because I am no longer sitting in that room, and I want the rest of my team to get it. And I'm able to click on the Slack message and assign it to myself and create maybe a ticket in ServiceNow that I will take over that's assigned to me. And when I'm done, I need to, again, be able to communicate back through all these apps. So with COVID, we have increased the number of communication channels in order to allow for this remote work, right? My NOC team is now global for all intents and purposes. And being able to communicate with all of them, but keep coordinated, make sure that as we track our work, and again, in this global world, with across multiple systems, Jira and ServiceNow and app deployment, which has gotten so much more agile, right? So as networking guys and infrastructure guys, we now have to work hand in hand with our development brothers and sisters to make sure that we can meet their expectations, and at the same time they don't do something that's going to break us.
Yeah, and let's be honest. Let's be fair about it. I think the network was, I don't know, dragging their feet's the right word, but I think it took a little while for net DevOps or DevNet Ops to catch up with the rest of the DevOps community. I think that might be a little unfair, but that's what we do here. We call it like I see it. That's how I work best.
Yeah, we were victims of our own success. It puts ITOM in some of these pretty heavy processes, and it reduced the number of breakages through changes, but it also makes you a little bit slower to adapt to change, like you were saying.
One of the things that really resonates with me on your description of priority and focus is this idea around the person in the room. They're so used to, the paradigm is, I get an alert, I get a message, I need to consume it. But the reality is, you have to do something with it, right? And now I feel like this scale is increasing dramatically. Some of it because of what's happening with DevOps. Some of it is because of the massive scale of security alerting, for example, that goes along with it. And so now we've got, that individual who in the past was responsible for consuming messaging,
Yeah,
and they just don't scale,
that
right?
is correct. Yeah.
Particularly when the scale involves taking an action. So I think this is where, to me, I want to believe that this is where the next step of hyperautomation is not only are we, creating some uh, better visibility and discernment in how we consume the messages, but also now taking action and actually uh, making our human resources much more effective because we're allowing our systems to make better choices. And so I don't. That's my sense of it.
Yeah. No,
Thoughts?
I think you're bringing up a great point. And this was exemplified to me actually 5 years ago. Maybe I was at a Docker conference, and they talked about treating your servers at a time as pets versus as a herd, right? Your pet, you know it by name, you care about it, versus having it being in a herd where it's a number, it's ephemeral, it's here today, it's not there tomorrow. And a lot of that comes with the new way we even build applications, right? We're building microservices, we scale smoothly, we add additional components to the cluster, new nodes, and we hopefully downscale when the demand is lower. Now, that actually is a very complicated thing, right? Because again, we brought up the point earlier about network moving a little slow, but think about the change management process that we use in enterprises to make a change. So now suddenly we're asking this organization that was beat into submission to have MAC this and all kinds of change requests. And now we're saying, you know what, we're just going to do this completely automatically. No one is even going to improve it. So there is a bit of a cultural shift. So even as the technology comes in, there is the human element of us trusting that we can take our knowledge, our expertise as network, experts, and encode it into workflows that are going to do this 100 times faster with much less human error, 1,000 times more reliably. And there is, understandably, right, some hesitancy. Like, what does that mean for me? What's going to happen to my job if I teach the router to make the BGP changes, right?
Right.
Well, the fact is, there will be a new technology tomorrow, and our architecture of the network is going to change. We're going to transition from the 6500 Ciscos to the Nexuses, and that was obviously a massive transition. So, but we have to get to the idea of like, listen, we got to be able to quickly teach our automation to do our job, because otherwise we're never going to scale. We're going to fail our businesses in what we're supposed to deliver.
I take a very brutal approach to this, and I'm an old guy. Look, Vess, I'm old, right? It just is what it is, right? And I used to tell my teams all the time, yes, there is change. Yes, hey, guess what? In technology, you better keep up, right? And that's true no matter what. I mean, if you're competing with AI or whatever else is coming up, you've got to stay current. You got to stay relevant. And this is the relevant technology today. And, I would add to the piece that you said about, the rate, there's the rate of change that, that's going on. But I'd also say the volume of change is also, gone up as well. This is everything that has to do with running an agile shop. If you're trying to be, digitally transform your environment, then you're iterating, you're dropping more changes more often, and that's just volume of change. Your point, the point you made about the change aspect of this, these are all things people have to touch, and we need less of that, not more, right? So
absolutely. Well, and that's where I think what happens now, the next step here as a supplier, is the way we look at it. It's about layers of abstraction that are easy for the organization to absorb. Right. So we need a layer of vendor independence. We need a layer of cloud independence. Obviously, we can't just put all of our chips on the same number and spin the roulette, because you then become overly dependent on any single supplier. So this is where having the ability to orchestrate end-to-end is very important. Again, not just from a individual technology purpose, but from a business mission purpose. And every business is different. A bank is going to have a different mission than a telecom. But at the end of the day, your technology needs to align behind how your business is delivering value to its customers. So that's very important to think about.
Yeah, I still tend to wrap all those things up. I mean, business features, business functions aside, you're still trying to. The common point is, I'm trying to improve those features. I'm trying to deliver new features. I'm trying to secure those features better than I did before. Operationalize around them and drive down their costs. I don't care what company you're in. You're trying to do all those things.
Yes.
If you're not doing those things, then you're not participating in digital transformation. That's my hot sports opinion today.
Yep.
Right. And you should be asking yourself, why aren't you focused on doing that? Because you're missing it, right? Tell me where I'm wrong.
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. I mean, if anything, I think that you should take it a step further. And as engineers, like I was saying, we should kind of think about what is it we're delivering, because the more and more IT is an integral part of the product, whether it's internal billing, whether it is external billing as we deliver products to our customers, connecting our processes with the business is going to make the whole thing work better. And that I think is the promise of hyperautomation, right? It's not just, hey, I'm going to perform my changes better, I'm going to respond to my alerts faster, but it's also like, how can I now connect to the core KPI of the business to some extent? And when somebody, let's say, comes in and signs up for a new VPN connection or becomes a customer in some other way, as they make the change in the CRM, that already is provisioning the IT to support that new customer or that new service. And I think that's the next 20%.
Suppliers get this better than the enterprise consumer, in my opinion. Suppliers understand better what their products are and what product delivery means. At least the successful ones do. Enterprises need to, more and more enterprises, and many of them are, but more and more enterprises need to shift to that same thinking, that sort of McKinsey model of product, right?
Yeah, and digital transformation, which you mentioned.
Exactly right. Nice. All right. So let's maybe take it from a different point of view. Do you think anybody's out there chasing the wrong balls on hyperautomation? There's so much in hyperautomation that's associated with, or is being associated with, what companies are doing in AI ML. Are they doing too much, too little? What do you have an opinion? I'm sort of taking you. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit because we didn't actually prep for this. But do you think people are have the right focus in the AI space when it comes to hyperautomation?
Well, look, I think the one mistake that many folks, many practitioners make, and this is coming from dozens of conversations with friends as well as prospects as well as customers, is trying to reinvent the wheel, right? Oftentimes as engineers, we come into this new space and you're like, okay, I'm now doing programmable infrastructure, software-defined networking, whatever. Let me start doing it. And oftentimes you're not really considering the solutions that are in front of you before you get your new toys and you start building out in production, which is oftentimes where we see the most people sort of fail and maybe get discouraged. Now, when it comes to AI and machine learning, I think these are very, very promising technologies. Again, machines are only as good as we're going to teach them. So this is where relying on models that are somewhat proven, being able to have the internal process to feed your own understanding of your infrastructure to the models is what's going to make them successful. So there is interesting ways for us to incorporate AI and ML. I think more of it actually comes down to being able to understand tickets and direct actions better around even sort of the English or whatever language we use. I mean, the human language within our tickets, even to some extent more so than some of the data from faults, for example, because I think that is maybe a little bit less predictable, and taking automated action there may be a little bit more difficult, but I'm seeing some amazing things being done. So I am probably wrong as I say that. So I would say the main thing that folks really need to focus on is really try not to be sort of going to, and I encourage you to learn. By all means, learn and play in your lab, but going to Stack Overflow and pulling a few lines of Python is oftentimes not good enough for production.
All right, I'm going to ask you, and this is the risk of being on a podcast with me.
Go for it.
You brought up data, right? What in your estimation, and we can have a network bias if you want, that's fine. But in your estimation, where are enterprises missing it from a data perspective? What are they needing to fix more often than not in in their data domain to have successful AI ML type of implementations? Do you have an opinion on that? And I know I'm taking you totally by surprise on this, so just curious if you had a thought on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely outside of Pliant domain and everything else, but just as a technologist, right? This is me, take my title off and my company off. As a technologist, I think the most important thing is the post-mortem on the tickets, because that is where we're going to learn. That's how the machine is going to learn what really happened. So having the ticket, fine. Having data about the ticket, getting the enrichment, and we've come a long way here. But whether it's NetFlow, whether it's metrics data or log data, fine. That's important to associate it with the ticket. But then finally having the postmortem to be able to go back to and train the algorithm. Machines are only as good as the algorithm we train them with, or the data we train them with. And you can't just show people the problem, we never give it the error and hope that give it the solution and hope that it's going to learn.
Love it. All right, I can see right away I'm going to have you back on, just to talk about that topic, because I love to nerd out on the data side. So
I'll bring my CTO, by the way, who is a bit of an AI geek. So Dimitar, who is my CTO, is amazing at this game. So he would do a good job.
Yeah, all right. Let's make sure we do that. Okay, I want to so this has been great. I really appreciate it. I want to give you a little room. Tell us a little bit about what Pliant is doing in this space, and how do you feel like Pliant is going to address hyperautomation? I just want to give you a few minutes to talk about that.
Sure. So what Pliant does is we are an API orchestration and automation platform. So we have extremely high expertise in IT use cases, but from that perspective, the platform itself, which is really an iPaaS integration platform as a service, right, can help you interconnect your applications with your IT in a true end-to-end kind of manner. So we can get data from your observability platform, whether it's F1, whether it's Kentic, whether it's Mooksoft, or any number of these pretty amazing platforms out there. We can make decisions based on that, update tickets, then take automated action in certain cases when that's warranted, and of course, then close out the tickets, etc. Well, keeping folks in the loop. We can alert you via your Slack. We can play with your ServiceNow and create these end-to-end workflows. Pliant also comes with a very powerful API gateway, which allows you to expose many of these actions to your users, possibly programmatically. For example, I may not want my NOC guys to ever log into my firewall, but I do want them to make certain, let's say, rule changes. I can create an API endpoint in Pliant that I can then publish to the enterprise that allows you to make that API change without having any other rights on the firewall and possibly messing it up. And there's many examples like that. So from that perspective, it's a platform that allows you to do, like I said, end-to-end automation between apps, clouds, on-prem, off-prem, anything that has a CLI or an API we can talk to and create these workflows in a tenth of the time that it normally does. Thank you.
So do you, part of what you just said sounds like policy enforcement. Is that, that
role-based access control?
Yeah.
Very powerful governance in terms of logging the actions, powerful logging of outcomes. Because again, oftentimes people start writing some automation, and how often in your Bash script or Python script do you include the library to send the log message to Splunk to keep it tracked, right? So you pretty much don't. Or add role-based access control. You either have access to that script or you don't. Or having secrets management. Is my passwords hard-coded in my script? Because that's not a great idea. So all these...
We laugh, and that crap happens all the time.
Sure, like, it's automation. You need to have access to it, but there are smart ways to have it encrypted in a key store, et cetera, which comes for free when you use Pliant.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, listen, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking the time and projecting your industry leadership and knowledge around the topic. It's it's helpful, and again, for the audience, it's just a example of what happens at ONUG. So thank you so much for being here with me today. What's the best way for people to reach out to Pliant?
Sure.
Hit your website.
Hit our website. You can see our community edition there. Hit me up. I'm Vess, VESS, at pliant.io. Always happy to engage. So looking forward to talking to you again, Mark.
Yeah, appreciate it. So again, everybody, don't forget about ONUG Fall 2022 in New York, October 19th and 20th in Manhattan. So go to onug.net to register. One of the things, though, also just really encourage you to think about joining the ONUG Collaborative, and you can learn more about that at onug.net as well. Find out about all the different working groups that we have going on right now. So get involved, and thanks again to Vess, and we'll see you on the next ONUG podcast. Thanks, everybody.